Section 3: Pollution and Extraction. Environmentalist art has a strong tradition of documenting current events, including pollution and human activity. An example of environmentalist art is the Documerica project, created by the newly formed EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. The Documerica project has over 20,000 projects documenting pollution, infrastructure, and wilderness in America. An example of the Documerica project includes W. Eugene Smith's 3-year project in Minamata, Japan, that photographs the effects of mercury poisoning from a local factory. In contemporary art, artists continue to engage with ecology like environmentalist art. Examples are Chris Jordan's Midway, where he has close-up photographies of the plastic waste found in dead game birds. The second one is Yao Lu's series New Landscapes, depicting mounds of trash with green netting photographed in a manner that initially appears like the landscapes of traditional Chinese scroll painting. And the third and last, but most important guy is Edward Rorowski, who coined the term toxic sublime. Toxic sublime has an effect of making the extreme appearance of pollution beautiful and almost pleasurable to look at. Wheatfield, a confrontation, Battery Park landfill, downtown Manhattan, with Agnes Denis standing in the field. Agnes Denis is a Hungarian-born American artist whose practice is based in New York City. She studied at the New School and Columbia University, beginning her career as a poet before pursuing visual art full-time. Denis was one of the first artists in the post-war decades to articulate an explicitly ecological direction for art. Denis' work, Rice/Tree/Burial, of 1968, is one of the foundational works of contemporary ecological art, described by Denis as a manifesto, meaning a creative work that sets out an agenda for radical change, set in Sullivan County, New York. The rice part of the work is just rice being grown to symbolize sustained life. The trees in the artwork is a group of mature trees that are wrapped in chains, creating a zigzag pattern of metal reaching up towards the sky as a symbolism of human damage and interference with the natural world. The Burial is Denis's staged performance by burying a poem that she has written. Rice/Tree/Burial and demonstrates the key term ecologic, a complex of site-oriented artworks that work together to make a philosophical concept. Agnes Denis then made the second iteration of Rice/Tree/Burial at Art Park, an outdoor space for site-based artworks in Lewiston, New York. In the second iteration, the main difference is that the rice was planted on a half-acre of land. However, the rice, instead of growing to show the sustain of life, was actually hindered due to the contaminants from Art Park's proximity to Love Canal. Love Canal was a site near Niagara River in Niagara Falls, which contained 21,000 tons of toxins dumped by Hooker Chemical Company, now Occidental Petroleum Company. In her second iteration with the Burial, instead of burying a poem, she put in a time capsule encased in 9 feet of concrete, displaying Niagara Falls over a 7-day period on a constructed ledge. The time capsule will remain closed until the year 2979. Denis's second major project comes from Wheatfield, A Confrontation. Denis planted and grew 2 acres of wheat in Lower Manhattan. Like in the second iteration of Rice/Tree/Burial, the Wheatfield Confrontation is planted near a polluted land full of debris. A Confrontation Wheatfield is located at Battery Park landfill. However, today there is no trace of Denis's work present at the site. Denis had wheat on land that was worth $4.5 billion. The harvested grain traveled to 28 cities around the world in an exhibition called the International Art Show for the End of World Hunger, organized by the Minnesota Museum of Art. The seeds were carried away by people who planted them in many parts of the globe. Currently, there is only 9 photographs of Wheatfield, A Confrontation. Wheatfield, A Confrontation created a juxtaposition between dense urban construction and open pastoral farmland. In all, many of Denis's photographs of Wheatfield look like manipulated images, where one photograph has been collaged with another, either through printing multiple negatives or cutting printed photographs. However, all the images actually exist. Their seemingly impossibility is its most powerful part of the art piece. Denis's last art piece is Tree Mountain, where 10,000 trees planted by 10,000 people will create an intricate geometric spiral. The Finland government announced their funding in the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. However, Tree Mountain got more funding, creating 11,000 trees by 11,000 participants, and each person who planted the tree will own the tree for exactly 400 years. Offshore drilling. Noah Purifoy was born in Snow Hill, Alabama in 1917. Noah Purifoy lived and worked in Los Angeles, California, and the nearby town of Joshua Tree, California. The 12th of 13 children, he grew up his bachelor's degree from Alabama State Teachers College and a master's in social work from Atlanta University, despite him growing up in poverty. He would later move west and study for his Bachelor's of Fine Arts at Chaminade Art Institute. In the West Coast, Pierrefoy started his art career with design objects such as stereo cabinets, beds, and wall decorations. In 1964, Noah Pierrefoy co-founded the Watts Towers Arts Center. The Watts Tower Arts Center was named after an artwork created by Simon Rodia. The Watts Towers Arts Center provides art instructions and opportunity for members of the Watts community. 2 years later, Pierrefoy's practice gained a substantial new audience when he created a new series of junk art, starting with the first exhibition, 66 Sign of Neon. 66 Sign of Neon was a direct response to the Watts Rebellion in August 1965, a period of 6 days in which people in Watts took to the streets following the arrest of an African-American man suspected of driving under the influence. Due to the crowd outside, police brutality exploded, resulting in 34 deaths and over 1,000 injuries. Pierrefoy worked together with Judson Powell to create the 66 Signs of Neon, melting neon signs and added works by 6 additional artists. Pierrefoy in 1966 left his position at the Watts Towers Arts Center to educate at California colleges, including UCLA, the University of California, Santa Cruz, and Immaculate Heart College in Los Angeles. He would later then become an administrator as a member of the California Arts Council. In 1989, he would then move to town of Joshua Tree. At Joshua Tree, he would create his museum called the Noah Pierrefoy Outdoor Desert Art Museum, containing dozens of site-based sculptures. Some include the carousel, a small structure that one can enter and walk around in. Others, like Bowling Ball 1, are more conventional freestanding sculptures, containing found objects such as bowling balls, cafeteria trays, wire, old tires, televisions, and other household appliances and scrap metal. Pierrefoy connected the availability of such junk art, saying it's more accessible in large cities and it relates to the poor people. In the museum, offshore drilling was created as a response to the 1969 oil spill in Santa Barbara. The aesthetic of the offshore drilling could be connected to Russian revolutionaries like Vladimir Tatlin and post-war modernists like Anthony Caro. Located right of the offshore drilling is Ode to Frank. Ode to Frank is still part of the Outdoor Museum Offshore Drilling. It is referenced to the Genkries Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, Spain, fashioned with distinctive titanium panels to show urban gentrification, in counterpoint to the junk of Pierrefoy's city and the systemic effects of offshore drilling. Caribou migration. Subhankar Banerjee was born in Calcutta in 1967 to study electrical engineering in India, before moving to the US in 1990 to complete his master's in physics and computer science at New Mexico State University. Banerjee first worked at the Los Alamos National Laboratory and then for the Boeing Company. While living in New Mexico, he joined the Sierra Club and began hiking in the mountains and studied photography as a hobby. Finis Dunway describes that Banerjee's visit towards Churchill in northern Manitoba, Canada, was a turning point to his career, due to him wanting to take photos of polar bears without seeing any disturbance. After this critical point, Banerjee left the Boeing Company to join the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. The Arctic National Wildlife Refuge is a 20 million acre piece of land that protects wildlife. However, a small strip along the Beaufort Sea is not protected at the same level. During the 2000s, President George W. Bush campaigned a pro-drilling platform, alongside with Alaska Senator Frank Murkowski, attempting to initiate drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge in order to create new jobs and have less reliance on foreign oil. In a debate about drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, Senator Barbara Boxer held up a copy of Banerjee's book, Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, Seasons of Life Inland. The book was originally located at Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. However, Senator Barbara Boxer used Banerjee's books that contains photographies and text of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to show the presence and fragility of life on the refuge. Senator Frank Murkowski, on the other hand, displays a blank white poster to show the empty and lifelessness of Alaska. With the compelling book, Boxer managed to skew the vote to 52-48 in favor to not drill. The tides then shifted again due to the Department of the Interior finally opening up 1.5 million acres in Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to oil and gas industries, selling $14.4 million on January 6, 2021, when the president will soon be inaugurated. President Joe Biden comes around with a moratorium on oil and gas extraction, ending all the oil and gas drilling leases in the area. Caribou migration is the central image to Banerjee's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge project. Caribou migration shows traveling caribou walking in snow, creating lines that could be interpreted as the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge is not empty but a fragile ecosystem and migration patterns of the caribou. In addition, the Gwich'in population requires the caribou for food. Chief Dana Tizia Tram of the Vuntut Gwich'in First Nation states how they will continue to protect their land. Pictures of garbage. Vix Muniz was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil. After high school, Vix Muniz moved to the US, working in Chicago, New York, before establishing his career in first sculpture and then photography. His best known work is the Double Mona Lisa, where he has the left side of the Mona Lisa be painted with jelly and the right side be painted with peanut butter. The Double Mona Lisa was part of a larger series called the After Warhol, dedicated to pop artist Andy Warhol, who has a silk screened side-by-side double portrait of the Mona Lisa. After Warhol also contains contemporary icons such as Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley. Vix Muniz's second work is called Action Photo after Hans Nemeth, where Muniz paints Jackson Pollock with chocolate syrup as paint. He uses the chocolate syrup as if Jackson Pollock uses paint. His third art piece is called The Best of Life, where he draws photographs of the Life magazine and recreates it, and then photographing his recreation. These memory renditions include JFK Jr. saluting his father's coffin, Man Stopping Tank in Beijing, Kiss at Times Square, and Man on the Moon. The Best of Life informs the viewer to be more reflective on the images of magazines. Marat Sabastio is a photograph from the series Pictures of Garbage. In 2008, Muniz began a collaboration with garbage pickers in Jardim Gramacho, a large dump near Rio de Janeiro. Lucy Walker documents Muniz's process in the film Wasteland. Muniz takes an outdoor photograph of Tiao Sanados, the organizers among the catadores of Jardim Gramacho. Catadores are impoverished garbage pickers. Tiao Santos recreated The Death of Marat, created by French painter Jacques-Louis David. Muniz, in addition to using Jacques-Louis David, utilized Caravaggio, Goya, Millet, and Picasso. After selling his art piece to an auction, he gave a portion of profit to the catadores.